appreciate you all turning out and for your interest in not only the 50th district race, but also in the road and bridge tax. And I thought before we begin, I would recognize and introduce our County Treasurer, Tom Darrow, in the back of the room. That's very good. And of course, Representative Chuck Bates. You couldn't remember his name there for a second, but thank you all for being here. And Sheree Reich, 44th District. Very good. Thank you, Sheree. The County Commission first went to the voters about a road and bridge tax in 1993, 25 years ago. And they introduced a half-cent sales tax to improve county roads, bridges, right-of-ways. And the voters have resoundingly approved this tax over the last 3 periods. The first tax was for 5 years, the second tax was for 10 years, and the third version of it is for also 10 years. And so for 25 years we've had this tax. At the time this tax was introduced, the county also decided to roll back property taxes, so they went from 29 cents per $100 of assessed valuation down to 5 cents. And so there was a pretty dramatic decrease, in almost an 80% decrease in what the county collects in terms of property tax for roads and bridges. So there was a significant rollback, which doesn't get mentioned very often, but I wanted to bring that up today. So I will tell you that I have spent much of the last 25 years being a critic of county government. And I tell you that now that I'm in-house and part of the problem, I am pretty impressed by the way that our resource management department and our public works department, the job that they do in taking care of our county roads and bridges. There is a lot of technology. I'm proud to tell you that your Boone County Public Works Department it really uses the most state-of-the-art technology in determining how they improve roads, the way that they improve roads, and which roads get taken care of first in terms of the priority. Okay, they have a very significant, impressive formula that they use. And so I have been impressed by that. And of course, they work closely with our resource management department as we plan the county's growth. And I will tell you, this tax generates about $14 million a year. Unfortunately, it is just enough money to maintain our county roads and bridges. We do not have significant enough resources to build new roads, and so most of this money goes towards simply the maintaining of roads. And I'm going to turn it over to Governor Wilson and let him talk a little bit about some of the things that he has learned as the chair of our campaign.
Thank you, Fred. Good job. Well, if you're going to introduce some people, I'm going to introduce some people.
All right.
I'd like to recognize Rudy Keller from the Tribune, Tom Mendenhall, one of the oldest landowners in Boone County. And speaking of landowners, I'm assuming quite a few of you are landowners. And if you take a look at the 771 miles that Boone County has to say grace over, and take a look at what even the 29-cent levy would amount to right now, we would be woefully underfunded, and your property tax would either have to go up or some of the chip and seal would just revert to gravel, and we would take a step backwards. That would be inappropriate and unconscionable for Boone County. Boone County has become a hub, a central region hub, whether it's tourism, medicine, the insurance companies we have here. Coming right up is the eclipse. There'll be about 100,000 visitors to Boone County. The road system that we have, if it were funded by property tax, would not be in the condition it's in right now. So 25 years ago, people made a good decision, and the voters, by I think it was 75 or 85%, approved this. There's some self-interest getting that property tax down, especially if you're a large property owner. But seeing the future and how much we are going to need to have an excellent transportation system was something that everybody agreed with. And I hope that voters agree with it again. I'd like to ask the Chamber for its endorsement of Prop 1. We want to thank the district, which we received an endorsement from today. I'm sure somebody will think of some reason to oppose it, but when they do, I want you to think, do I really want to take a step back for my community? Do I really want to have a deteriorating road system? That's unacceptable. We're moving forward. As Fred said, it can take care of the repair and maintenance right now. But if you blow a bridge out, it could be $500,000. And some of the weather we've had has blown a few bridges and culverts out. It's important to keep what we have and try to progress as much as we possibly can. This plan allows us to do it. It is not a new tax. It is a renewal of the half-cent sales tax that voters approved 25 years ago. I think it's time to keep going. Fred and I have 20 minutes. I don't think we've used half of it. You pay our salaries. You used to pay my salary. You now pay Fred's salary. You're entitled to any question you want to ask within the bounds of reasonableness and decency.
It might be hard. You know, I want to add one thing. On a local level, part of this $14 million that we collect, there's a very complicated formula that was agreed upon by all the participating municipalities and communities in Boone County back in 2011 about how the roads money is distributed. So we'll take a chunk of this money we collect and give it to the city of Columbia. We'll take a chunk of it and give it to Ashland. We'll take a chunk and give it to Centralia. One of the things that I think Columbia gets about $2 million a year out of this, and that money was used by the city of Columbia to improve Scott Boulevard. And so they took matching funds from MoDOT, they took money from the county that we gave them every year for the roads to complete that. That was a big project when really MoDOT didn't have a lot of money. And Scott Boulevard was a very important corridor in our community. And if you've been down it lately, you know, and I know there was a lot of pain during the construction period, but it is dramatically improved, and it's improved access for everybody living in Southwest Columbia. So,
and when that revenue sharing agreement was created, every community signed on. It was unanimous. And so I think you don't usually see that, right? but it was very welcome, obviously very well thought out, and it has been well executed.
Sherry, I'm sure we can.
Oh. I had more of a statement than a question. I just want to thank the county commission for making this tax have a 10-year sunset on it instead of a permanent tax. I think the voters are more willing to approve this, and I come on board and I'm supporting this because I was there back in the early 90s when the first 5-year and subsequent ones. But that way there's accountability in government, and we don't know what sales tax is going to be doing 10 or 20 or 50 years from now. So I want to thank you all for giving it a sunset and come back to us in 10 years.
Yeah, thank you. Taylor, do you have a question?
You came back and
Oh,
answered, but
okay.
I wanted to make sure that everybody here that was from those local municipalities knew that extra benefit, that it's not just the county roads that get that money, but it's our local communities as well. So I just wanted to
All
make
right,
sure
good.
you mentioned that.
Tom?
So Cherie's comment was a perfect lead-in to what I was going to ask. As you debated that 10 years versus perpetuity, which is I'm pretty sure we're going to have roads and bridges forever,
Yeah.
and I was a part of a couple of those conversations. Can you talk a little bit about what made the decision, and maybe as simple as what Cherie just said, getting people to support?
Well, we were relying on information, feedback that we were getting from the county clerk and from other folks about the necessity of going to the voters, because of the cost of election. And, elections are very expensive in Boone County. And so we had a pretty high confidence level that this would pass because the last one passed with a pretty significant, the last two have passed with significant majorities. If you recall, just to add a little Boone County history here, the very first time that this passed, it barely passed because that was the only time that Boone County used mail-in ballots. And that was very controversial, and I think it stimulated a few lawsuits. The city suing the county instead of the county suing the city. And so it was, but that was very controversial. I know, sorry. So to answer your question, Tom, I think that it really boiled down to accountability. We felt very confident that the county had been good stewards of road and bridge money over the years. And so it was going to be a pitch that was easy to make, and we didn't want to complicate things by making it permanent.
It gives you another chance to do community think in 10 years.
Yeah, right.
You're right, we don't know what's going to happen with sales tax, but somebody may be out there that can build a better mousetrap. That gives you the avenue or the time certain when you know you're going to re-examine it. It's good public policy.
Is there room in the budget for major expenditures that would attract a new business, prepare a property for doing business, or to support major construction of new subdivisions where people will expect a paved road to get to their new subdivision? Or are we just going to maintain the roads with the money we're getting out of this tax?
Well, I would tell you that there's really not room in the budget to do much of anything major, but we do have some flexibility. For example, right now, we have a major employer that's coming out on Route Z. And we were able to move believe it or not, St. Charles Road is gonna be a fairly important artery to get to this new employer for a lot of its employees. And so we were able to move St. Charles Road up on the list when we found out this employer was coming. And then we were able to use some existing resources to leverage community development block grant money from the federal government to pay for improvements on Route Z. But really, to answer your question directly, no, there really isn't money for major road projects. There's a lot of people looking at Gans Road right now in southern Boone County as a possible opportunity to have a southern loop through Columbia and connect it to I-70. That is something that's been on the books for a long time in Columbia. We need about an $8 million bridge and some more money to improve, to connect basically folks off of South Columbia all the way over to I-70 through Discovery Ridge. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to move funds around if we need to provide matching dollars. I'm hoping that the road tax gives us that opportunity to do so. If it doesn't pass, we won't have that option. Okay.
And kind of along those lines where we're looking at the lack of funds for big projects, with MoDOT struggling with funding as it is, I know we had been on the list for a long time for reinvestment at the Interstate 70, 63 PP interchange. I mean, that's a failed intersection, it's just terrible. But is there any plans looking forward to try to figure out a way to fund that on our own, since it doesn't look like the state's gonna have the money to do it anytime soon?
Well, we believe that if we can do the Gans Road project in the future, that will take a lot of pressure off that connector. Also, the extension of Clark Lane, which is part of the project that's being done at Route Z for American Outdoor Brands. We think that if we can put together a plan for Clark Lane, that's going to take some pressure off of that intersection as well. And then, just opening Discovery Ridge, which the city is doing right now, opening Discovery Ridge from that interchange of Gans Road and 63 up through Rolling Hills Road, up Grace Lane, maybe diverting it around Grace Lane. But that's also going to take a lot of pressure off of the connector, which I agree with you, and I think that most people involved in the project 15, 20 years later are saying, yeah, that didn't work.
They are putting in an extension of the business loop that's going to exclude the on-ramp to I-70 right there near 63. That will at least make it safer. But I don't think that there are any county dollars going into this. I think it's a TDD that's actually building that. Several years ago, when they were talking about a flyover or a couple of flyovers at the 63 intersection so you could get away from all the stop signs, that was a $115 million project. So no, the county couldn't handle that. No, the state can't handle that. And truthfully, this ought to be a time for reflection. We're not in good shape at the state level for highway funding or at the federal level for highway funding. I think it's a cause to be thankful that 25 years ago, somebody came up with a pretty good plan, and it's still working for us. And I think self-sufficiency is something that Boone Countyans expect, and I think we'll help deliver it with this. It's going to take some innovation and imagination in the future, and some tough votes.
And some sacrifice. When the business loop Conley Road extension took out some of your favorite golf holes, right? David.
Fred, you know this, some people do, some people don't. I've been on this committee too many years, too many times. But this is truly an investment for the future of Boone County. When I was on that county commission, Road and Bridge was funded by property tax. It was just pinch every penny you could pinch to make it work. We got this passed, not while I was there, but I helped do that. It has made a tremendous difference in the county's ability to give quality roads, to get citizens into the community, get people out of the community when they need to, provide alternate routes. When there's a crash on I-70, you have Gillespie Bridge Road that's paved, which used to be gravel. I mean, there's countless arteries like that people use every day that have been vastly improved because of this tax. This is an absolute no-brainer. It should pass.
Tom?
I want to reiterate that 30 years ago, concrete was $33 a yard, now it's over 100.
Yeah.
So we have to take care of business and move forward.
And it doesn't last very long anymore.
No.
So it's really, Eric.
If there's a crack, it's like the mortar between two bricks. if it's not filled up,
Yeah,
it's a void.
yeah.
And we have voids in a lot of our roads, but I'm not sure it's county roads, because you've got city roads, state roads, county roads, and they all have letters.
Thank you for bringing that up. The professionalism that is in the Road and Bridge Department is addressing that right now. They have looked at preservation techniques from all over the nation and are using some of those on Boone County
And
roads.
before you chip seal, you should fill those cracks.
Right.
Otherwise, water sits in there, and then it freezes and
Same
bakes, and you'll see a chip seal with a big piece missing. It's because that crack wasn't filled.
Yeah. Rusty, you want to say
I was
something?
just curious, in your pro forma, your 14 million, how are you projecting sales to look in the next 10 years?
Very flat.
Very flat? I think you're being very optimistic on flat.
Well, I think there's gonna be an opportunity down the road for a use tax in this community, and I think that's gonna make a big difference. Columbia is a very computer savvy town, and unfortunately, that means that a lot of our citizens like to do their shopping online, and so I'm hoping that the use tax, when we get a chance to consider it, folks are going to allow us to level the playing field for local brick and mortar retailers. And I think Amazon's on board to do that.
I mean, I think it's more leveling the playing field for the municipalities. I mean, the retailers,
Sure.
they're doing both. They'll figure out the online side. It's the municipalities that aren't getting the record of sales online that are suffering.
When they figure it out, we benefit.
Very good. Thank you for all the
Thank you.
questions, gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time.